Right now, everyone, a fiscal cliff, it is looming, but will we as a nation go over it? We're going to be joined on set by Congresswoman Nan Hayworth to talk about that and so much more. And next, Sandy, Athena, and their aftermath. Thousands in our region still without power tonight. Question is, what are the power companies, specifically LIPA, really doing about it? And later, the Latino vote. It came out in droves for President Obama this year and causing some of the GOP to ask if maybe some change is now due. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We're going to get into that, plus a bombshell that came across with the sudden resignation of the CIA director today. We'll get into all that this Friday evening, November 9th. But let's get first into the aftermath of the election, and we're joined on set by Republican Congresswoman Nan Hayworth from New York's Hudson Valley. Congresswoman, thank you so much. I really mean it, and I know elections are not only as grueling an exercise as we have here, but in such a tightly contested one like the one you ran in, to come on the air soon thereafter, I think is a testament to you. So I want to get into both the future in Washington, but let's talk about the election that just happened. Were you surprised on Election Day, not just with your own result, but also that Mitt Romney didn't win? Because so many Republicans I talked to that day, and I don't think that they were just paying me lip service, they believed in their bones, unlike 4 years ago when McCain was up, that when the votes were totally tallied, they not only were going to win, but they were going to win big. And I think they were just shocked here at the return.
Yes. You know, Richard, I had thought that, that the governor might win in a very close election. So I didn't think it would be a landslide. I know Michael Barone is actually, quite knowledgeable about politics, and he said 315 votes, and I'd read his piece. Richard, so look, this Hurricane Sandy did have an effect on the public discourse, and there are issues of momentum that affect, and they affected races like mine. The president had a substantial percentage margin over Governor Romney, and we had known that if there were a really large margin for the president, above, say, 5 points, that would be very hard for us to overcome structurally in the new district that I was running in. I
heard two prevailing thoughts from, and a lot of it was the raw emotion after the election, but you've heard it too. Republicans either fall into two camps, because you had a very beatable president this year. You had a challenging economy for a lot of Americans. I think that this was an electorate that was willing to vote for a change here. They just wanted to be given an alternative that they would have gone for. To that end, you got some Republicans like Rush Limbaugh who said 3 million Republicans stayed home today because they didn't like, in effect, the messenger. It wasn't conservative enough. A lot of Republicans have said, no, it wasn't the messenger, it was the message here. We're turning off too many constituencies and we have way too narrow a base. Which camp do you fall in?
Well, I think it's a combination. We had a primary process that was very trying for members of the party to witness. We had, there are messaging issues. There is a role, I do think, Richard, and I'm not laying blame on the media, but I think there is, the media did tend to take up the president's message more vigorously than Governor Romney's message. But again, it's incumbent upon those of us who are in this contest to recognize those factors and apply resources accordingly. There's a ground game issue. As you know, the Obama team had an incredible data mining and outreach and GOTV, get out to vote, effort that the Romney team really didn't have.
But the Romney team, unlike 4 years ago, did not suffer from lack of resources. And after the primary that I 100% agree with you was bruising, and I think in many ways made it very difficult for Romney to come back and pivot to the center without feeding into the stereotypes that he was the Etch-a-Sketch candidate. All that being said,
didn't help that his manager used the term.
That too. Next time they should avoid that. But all that said, listen, you're in a swing district historically. It can go either way here. Does it help when, in a modern-day Republican Party, to get through the gauntlet, you have to take positions that by nature, and you looked at all the polls, every exit poll confirmed as it relates to women,
Right.
as it relates certainly to Latinos, people of color here, etc. They felt there wasn't a place, which kind of violates the whole idea of Ronald Reagan's commandment here that you got to have a big tent. That didn't seem to be, from the outside at least, a big tent philosophy that we heard coming out of the GOP.
Well, it certainly, that's the way it was construed. That's the way most of the discussion took place. And certainly when someone like a Todd Akin or Richard Murdoch makes what people like me would have considered to be and did consider.
When you heard that?
Yes, very much. You know, I am one of those who believes that our party should have a great and liberating message, and it is that we want the government to have the right role, the right size role, and respect our wallets and respect that we have personal lives to lead and choices to make that should be ours alone.
Because I got to think the platform that was there in Tampa made it harder for you when you're in a swing district here to say, that's them, that's not me. Obviously, no one was going to confuse you with the Democrat ever, but we had Chris Shays here, who you may remember, and also Rob Simmons. Two guys who have voted and have been Republicans their whole lives, but find themselves like every New England Republican on the outside looking in tonight.
Absolutely.
Because they say, I'm a fiscal conservative, but I'm a moderate on social issues. I don't have a place anymore in the party, and that's a shame, because when Ronald Reagan was president, we had a place in the party. We're being felt like we're pushed out right now. And if the Republicans are going to win, and I'm talking about taking back the Senate or winning the White House again, doesn't that have to change?
Well, yes, Richard, in fairness to, for example, I'm a member of the House majority. And our leadership embraced me. They gave me a prominent role as a voice for our House conference. So knowing fully well that on issues of the environment and on social issues, I was not in line with most of my colleagues, but nonetheless, they embraced me. So I think most of it has to do with the way we reach out on the local level to the people in our communities. You know, I mean, it really is, it's a grassroots issue.
See, I think the Republican Party in a general, regardless of the race, whether it's House, Senate, or President, if they don't have to go through a primary where it's an either-or proposition for the hard conservative base electorate, I'll give a couple issues, and I'm curious how you feel about it. One is, look in the last year, the public opinion on gay marriage. It's turned out to be something, whether it was Biden who blurted out, whatever the impetus of it, it's now seen as a net positive in most of this country, poll after poll after poll.
There's definitely a trend.
The DREAM Act, for example. George W. Bush, he pushed for immigration reform. But now that was also held over and obviously influenced in large numbers what happened as it related to the Latino vote that turned out. The whole fight over birth control and coverage. How many women did we hear, and because of the Akin comments and because obviously of the Murdoch comments, it's almost like there was shooting yourselves in the foot here every time you guys got, you know, electorate prosperity. You know what I mean?
No, you're absolutely right. And there is definitely a challenge for us as a party. In addition to the fundamentals of, you know, persuading Americans, you know, voters, citizens, the electorate, that there are certain ways that government can serve them better, that we represent for them. Because that alone, when our Democratic colleagues tend to see a government program as a solution, you know, because they want to help, you know, so it's a very direct sort of one-step thing. If you have a problem, I'll get you a program, or I'll get you funding, something like that. Republicans take a more nuanced view. It's sort of like, you know what, there's a problem here, we need to solve it, but it's actually better if we don't solve it in that one-step way.
And I think that message might have closed this year if it was just, we'll keep the government out of the lives.
Right.
But you heard that the contradictory message then became, we'll keep it out of the lives.
And by the way, we're going to get right into your bedroom. Well, exactly. And I agree with you. So my feeling would be that the party does, and of course, you know, I'm not alone in saying this, we really do at this point have to have some real soul searching about how we accommodate people who sincerely want to promote certain goals in terms of the way people in their communities or their families live their personal lives, versus, you know, allowing, from the government level, allowing Americans to make those choices individually or as communities. You know, we should respect that. But my feeling, of course, would be that we can accommodate both. It's sort of like, by all means, all the advocacy, we have a First Amendment, we have freedom of speech, we have freedom of religion. You know, those things are fundamental, of course. So we should respect communities and respect individuals to have those causes. That's fine. But we can't ask the federal government to mandate behavior.
I want to get to the here and now, and I get your opinion here because you saw the situation play out last year when we were approaching the fiscal cliff. Now, right now, as we've approached the end of the year, I think even the person who will downplay anything acknowledges we're going to have a huge problem on our hands if nothing gets solved between now and the end of the calendar year. And both the president as well as the House Speaker spoke about this earlier today. Let's take a listen about this looming fiscal cliff.
If we're serious about reducing the deficit, we have to combine spending cuts with revenue. And that means asking the wealthiest Americans to pay a little more in taxes.
I think it's important for us to come to an agreement with the president, but this is his opportunity to lead. Raising tax rates will slow down our ability to create the jobs that everyone says they want.
And to make it clear for everybody, and this much there's bipartisan agreement, inaction could have serious ramifications. $650 billion in spending cuts and tax increases go into effect January 1 if there is no grand bargain. And both sides, they wasted very little time here drawing lines in the sand. All right, so, Congressman, my question is, we already heard John Boehner say, hey, Obamacare talks about repeal, that's off the table, okay? Law of the land, he won the election, elections have consequences. He said that he'd talk about revenue increases here, which translation is there could be some tax hikes. You were there a year ago. Yeah. We were led to believe that the president and John Boehner had a deal of sorts. Boehner came back here, and the Tea Party folks said not so fast, and then we saw what happened at the end of the year, and nobody thought it was a good solution. Credit rating downgraded, whole full faith and credit debate, et cetera. Right. What do you think is a doable deal right now? What do you think both sides, because I believe it's in both their political self-interest to get something done before they get back in the beginning of the calendar year. What do you think could be done?
You know, Richard, we have to look at all of these things pragmatically and, you know, philosophically. You know, what is the greatest net good? You know, when we were elected in 2010, as you know, as a remarkable, unprecedented wave in the House of Representatives, we had pledged certain things. We had said, and I go to small businesses today in our district, Richard, what can I do to help you? Please reduce the burdens. You know, tell us we're not going to have what we work so hard for taken in taxes. You know, tell us that the regulations will be lifted so that we can grow. We know that would be best. I feel absolutely, I believe it in my heart, in my soul, that that would be the best thing. And that's why I was very comfortable running saying, we're not going to raise taxes. And I agree with the Speaker. The best thing we could do, if it were ours alone to decide, would be not to raise taxes, not to raise net taxes. You know, to have tax reform, simpler, fairer tax code, lower the rates so that we can compete with other countries, which currently are certainly, you know, the biggest outsourcer in the world right now is the U.S. government, if you will, or the, you know, the tax code. So that would be best. Okay. But we know we're not going to get that. Okay, right. We're not going to get that. So my feeling is at this point, you know, we were awaiting an election, right? We thought, well, let's see what happens November 2012. Will we have House, Senate, White House aligned? As of January 2013, when we know that's not going to be the case. So my feeling is, you know, if it were left to me, I'd say, fine, let's get to work now. Because, you know, the composition isn't going to substantially change. Some of the voices will change,
But you were there when the doors were closed, and you knew the back and forth.
It was both sides, Richard. It
fair
was both
enough,
sides.
fair enough. Let's just say now, though, if there's political motivations and political self-interest in addition to doing the right thing, where do you think that there could be some agreement? And do you think that it won't just be, okay, this will be the spending cuts, this will be the tax hikes, but do you think they'll throw other things in there that will help both parties out? Immigration reform, I think, helps Republicans out even more than Democrats politically long term.
And we need immigration
Does this stuff get into it as well, or is it strictly a couple line item things to make the numbers add up?
I think the greatest net good we could provide is assurance that we're not going to have the fiscal cliff. And I think that means acting sooner rather than later. And in fairness to the Speaker, I respect him as someone who truly does, because I've seen him from the inside, truly does want to do what's right. He really, for every American, he serves 100%. He really does. And I think he wants to take a balanced, rational approach. And there were a lot of forces from both sides. You're right. There were polarizing forces. He's not a polarizer. He does bring people together. But in any case, what I'd like to see, greatest net good, we're not going to have a fiscal cliff. We are going to have an agreement. And I think at this point, we all have to express flexibility about, I don't want to see taxes raised anywhere. But if there is, the American people elected a president who said, we're going to raise taxes.
So you think maybe not 39% for a top-end rate, but maybe 37, something like that?
Right,
Do you think they're going to split the baby?
There may be, exactly. There may be some sort of flexibility in that way. At this point, because we know, we're going to have at least 2 more years of this combination, and we've got to move.
I'm going to get a few more things before I lose you on time. Alan West, Joe Walsh, Roscoe Bartlett, Bobby Schilling, Francisco Canseco. These were all members of that freshman class. These Tea Party guys who waved the flag.
Not Roscoe.
Not Roscoe, I'm sorry. But these were proud Tea Party folks here.
Yeah.
And if I showed a clip from a year ago around this time, a little bit later, Boehner made it clear that he wasn't going to go through this again for what he went through last year. I believe, whatever people think of him, what they campaigned on, they delivered for 2 years. Yeah. They took those principles. But I think the message, and I'm curious, was it delivered this Tuesday that maybe that's what they ran on, but that's not what the public at the end of the day really wanted? Or do the Tea Party folks that are remaining there, who John Boehner clearly said they don't have a caucus anymore in the House, right? Do they still have enough sway to dictate in a large way Republican policy? I
think, and I was not a member of the Tea Party caucus. I had Tea Party support, and I was proud to have it when it represented what our Constitution ordained for us. I thought it's very, very positive to have limited, respectful
But you made clear
government.
when you were running this time that you were not going to be waving that Tea Party flag like everybody else.
Well, there was a label that that meant she's rigid, she's doctrinaire, which was the opposite of what I am and what I performed as. But most of the members who were elected by strong Tea Party affiliations are still there.
Are they going to go along to get along now, or are they going to still be as what they said clearly was, you know what? If I break with the party, I break with the party. So be it. Have they, in some ways, after 2 years, seen there's principle, but there's also politics? We're going to tone this down a little bit, or not?
We'll see. Well, Richard, we'll see when we get back. I mean, this is a big election. So.
I want to ask you a couple of questions, which you were known as one of the most hard-working lawmakers in there. But to be a congressperson today, regardless of your party, if you have a tough district, you basically have to work 7 days a week. Yep. You got to raise money from the day you get in office here till the day you go home for good. And I've talked to a lot of folks who've said, it's not what I thought it was going to be. I'm not naive, they say, but I thought there'd be more governing and less about fundraising and less about this dysfunction that's Washington, that if you're in the minority party, you basically don't get to do anything. And even if you're in the majority party here, you've got this gridlock. All in all, I know you'd love to be going back, but is a part of you saying, I can do better things with my life?
Well, I love this job, and I cherish this role. It was a great honor, Richard. So my most fervent wish was that I could continue to serve, or I wouldn't have run. But I'm confident I'll find other ways to be useful. It is a tough life. Is
it more frustrating than you thought it would be?
If it's not about you, it was never about me. If it's about the people you serve, yes, you can feel a sense of frustration that we're not making the progress that we should and we could. But you have to view it optimistically as a series of challenges. I'm a problem solver. I'm a doctor. You know, and I entered that profession because it's a servant profession, it's a healing profession, and every patient who sat down with me, I would say to myself, now here is someone who needs my help to solve a problem. Ecumenically, regardless of in politics, regardless of philosophy, let's get together and just make something useful happen.
Doesn't sound like DC today.
I know, but Richard, if people like me don't do this job,
well, you have an open invitation. We'd love to have you back here. Obviously, you don't have to be as bound here by some of the politics come the beginning of the calendar year. We'd love to have you here and give us some insight that only you could give. Congresswoman, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll bring our panel in to sound off on that fiscal cliff here and what a grand bargain may actually look like. Please stay with us.